Welcome to This Week in East Brunswick, the town's news and information program. Today we'll visit Raphael's farm on Old Stage Road for a close-up look at the new buffalo in town. We'll join the kids at the community beach for a look at stories in the sand. On our regular features, we'll learn about preventing sunburn with this week's Health Facts host, Dr. Cynthia Bowers. Paul Hansen will have 9 questions to ask when looking for a financial planner. And on Consumer Aware, Adrian Eisner talks about car rentals. Finally, we'll close with our review of Monday night's Township Council meeting. But first, here's a preview of the programs next week here on Channel 8. We begin the month on Monday morning at 10 a.m. with exercise and aerobics on Look Great, Feel Great with Lenore Kulik. At 10:30 on Target, Paul Durant speaks with Eileen Puri about the COPSA Institute for Alzheimer's Disease and Related Disorders. Tuesday night at 7:30, Ken Shalhoub discusses asthma with Susan Schulman on Let's Talk Health. And at 8 on You and Your Money, Paul Hansen talks about credit unions with his guest, Jack Helly. For the children, it's Reading Rainbows with LeVar Burton on Wednesday afternoon at 3. At 7 p.m. Wednesday, Spotlight on Education focuses on the prevention of child abuse. Be sure to tune in to the next edition of This Week in East Brunswick on Thursday at 7 and 8 p.m. And for repeats of the week's shows, check the Channel 8 program guide.
How many towns have their own family of buffalo? Well, East Brunswick does, including a new arrival last week. They're owned by Les Raphael of the Irwin Raphael Bus Company. And Channel 8's Kevin O'Rourke asked Les how he got started raising the animals.
It started a long time ago. You know, my brother, he's a guy crazy for animals, you know, and we had always had some kind of animals around. And he has a friend up in Pittsfield, Maine. His name is Wright, and he owns half of the town up there. And my brother traded him, I don't know, a quarter horse for a pair of buffalo, with, you know, sight unseen. And they come and they were pretty big, and we thought, boy, we won't be able to keep them in at all. I think that's why he got rid of them, but we don't know. But then they come down, and it was quite a while. We had them before, you know, she had a young, but we had a Charolais bull here, and we didn't realize that he was a bull, you know. Right. And she had this calf, and it was such a surprise, we called him Surprise. I guess you probably, you know, heard about it that time when they had a big write-up about it.
That was a few years back.
Yeah, a few years back.
Right. And now you have a new young animal here on the farm.
Yeah, another little buffalo, but it's a little girl now, so. She had 2 boys, but she raised, you know, both of them was raised. But the one that, the first one she had, we had a quarter horse, and he wouldn't let her near it. So Gary and I, we went down there, my brother, and he carried it all the way from down the back pasture, all the way up here. And it was breathing bad, you know, like it was going to die. So my brother said, call my daughter. She's a nut around animals, you know. And she brought it home and had it in a cardboard box. And she got some cholesterol milk off a friend of hers down there, which they've got to have first, you know, that straightens them all out, you know, as dietary and stuff like that. And all of a sudden he grew into a nice, I used to run around the yard with him. I had a, you know, hauler on him.
Now the new one that's here now is a young female. And
yeah.
She hasn't been named yet. It's very new, about a week old.
Yeah, I was born last weekend, not this past weekend, the week before that.
And this one wasn't a surprise?
No, we knew he was going, you know, she was going to have it, but we didn't know what date. But it was, you know, it was pretty good because when I seen her over there, and I kind of thought it was a female right away.
Can you tell me a little bit less about how old each of the buffalo are and about how much they weigh? They're rather impressive animals.
Well, I'll tell you the truth, I thought he'd always weigh around a ton, but everybody that come around that seems to be experts on it said he'd think it would weigh nearer 2 tons.
4,000 pounds.
Yeah, that's, he's a big doe.
And the female?
Well, I don't think she'd go even a ton. I don't think so. She don't look like, you know, right. She'll go a ton.
About how old are each of the buffalo?
Well, she must be, I think 5 or 6 year old she is, and he's about 4-year-old. We sent, we get a farm paper, you know, it's like the rural New Yorker, you know, it's, and we get it every week, and we found a paper where they had this here bull, you know, a little young bull, so we sent up and got him and brought him home when he was 4 months old. So that's him out there now.
I understand that Billy has been bred with a few of the cows that you
Yeah,
have here.
yeah, they're, you know, he's been breeding. That's where you get your, you know, cholesterol meat, you know. And there's a lot of people, they believe in it, but you know, you hear so many rumors about things, you don't know whether it's good or bad, you know.
Have you tasted it yourself?
Yes, I tasted it. It's a stringy affair, you know. It ain't as like a nice, smooth, you know, meat like a cow, you know. But by crossing them both, you know, it's pretty good.
Any plans for more generations of buffalo in East Brunswick here?
I don't know. We may get another couple, you know, cows or whatever they call them, you know, females.
How about telling us a bit less about the story?
Oh, about the getting out?
When these buffalo have surprisingly jumped the fence that you're standing right behind, which
Well,
must be over 4 feet tall.
You know, I come in here and I think Sandy wasn't here then, but all of a sudden wanted to drive and say, "Hey, your buffalo jumped the fence." I said, "Yeah, nuts. They have to, you know, they have to go through the fence. They can't jump it." One day, all of a sudden, I see them jump the fence, you know, and then we put the wire fence. But before that, it was about 9 o'clock at night. My brother's wife called me up and she says, "The buffalo are out." So they were down on the next street here. I can't remember what the name of that street is. But he walked through the guy's yard and was breaking his, you know, his bushes down. And I'll tell you, he hardly done anything. It took a couple bites out of it, which no one even could see. But the neighbors across the street, they love our animals. You know, nobody can say nothing about them animals. And they just had put a new lawn in. It was like brand new. And all through that lawn, he went around. So my sister-in-law called me up and she says, "You better come on down because the buffalo are out." I get down and you never see so many people in your life down there. So I come back and I got a bucket of feed and I go out and I said, "Come on, Sansa, let's go." And that's the first street down here, you know, I can't think of the name of it. And he followed me right back in the yard here.
Not your everyday occurrence in East Brunswick, I'm sure. Having,
No, I'm sure
buffalo.
that, but it was quite an event that day.
For the past 4 years, a popular children's program at the East Brunswick Community Beach has been Stories in the Sand. Run by the Children's Department of the East Brunswick Library, the program runs for a 6-week period from mid-July through August. This past Friday, we spoke to the storyteller, Gargi Sichter.
I'm from the Children's Department at the East Brunswick Public Library. This is actually my first year doing this program, but what we do is every Friday at about 1:30 we come at the beach and we scout around the beach area and we round out a few kids, usually about anywhere from 15 to 20, sometimes less due to weather, but usually 15 to 20. And you know, kids on the beach, they just move around, so sometimes they come in at one time and sometimes they leave. And then we just tell a few stories with them, and then we do a few finger plays or little finger exercises, body movements, and we just tell the stories, and we have their reactions to the stories, and we have them participate at some games.
I'm Paul Hansen with this week's Money Tip. People who lack the time or expertise to manage their income and assets are increasingly turning to financial planners. However you choose to pay for your financial advice, your expense is relatively modest compared with the potential long-term rewards and risks of following a planner's specific recommendations. Here are some of the questions that you might want to be asking your prospective financial planner. What will it cost me to carry out this advice? A competent planner should provide you with an accounting of any commissions he receives on products he recommends. These charges usually range from less than 1% to more than 10%. Second, how have you exercised due diligence on these products? Most planners, including those who work for institutions, rely entirely on the research provided by broker-dealers who supply products and conduct the required due diligence. Ask your planner to summarize when and how such research was done and why he's satisfied that it's accurate. Third, why do I need additional insurance coverage? You can expect your planner to estimate the current income your family would require should you die or become disabled, and tell you how the policies he recommends would provide for those needs. Fourth, is the portfolio you proposed appropriately diversified? A conscientious planner should balance your assets among different investments so that your total return will be reasonably stable despite market or interest rate fluctuations. Fifth, does this plan give me ample liquidity for emergencies? As a rule, you should be capable of raising cash equal to at least 3 months' net income in the event of unexpected expenses or temporary unemployment. Sixth, what sort of returns can I expect to achieve? Your planner should be able to project how much wealth you can hope to accumulate over the next 5 years or so. Ask about his assumptions for your real rate of return, which is adjusted for inflation. Most investors will do well if their returns consistently outpace inflation by 2 or 3% a year. Seventh, how will you help me realize my retirement goals? He should tell you whether he thinks you'll be able to save more or work longer to meet your retirement goals. He should suggest a schedule for gradually shifting your investment priorities in favor of capital preservation and increased income. Ninth, and finally, do you follow your own financial advice? If his answer is occasionally or usually, a planner should be willing to document his own ownership of products that he's recommending for you. The fact that an advisor has his money where his mouth is provides additional assurance that he has your best interest at heart. There's no one better able to manage your money than you. Make the wise choice. I'm Paul Hansen, host of You and Your Money, with this week's Money Tip.
Today's health fact is from East Brunswick resident Dr. Cynthia Bowers, an assistant professor of medicine at the Robert Wood Johnson Medical School. She is also a member of the Central New Jersey Medical Group and practices at the Rutgers Community Health Plan.
Summer is a time when we're all able to be outdoors enjoying our favorite activities, but it's also a time to be beware of the exposure to the sun and sunburn. Sunburn is caused by overexposure to ultraviolet radiation. The amount of radiation required to cause a burn varies depending on the sensitivity of an individual's skin and the previous level of exposure and tanning. Once the exposure has occurred, little can be done to prevent the skin changes of redness, blistering, and swelling. Treatment consists of application of ice packs or cold compresses and, if the skin is broken, keeping the area clean and covered. Hydrocortisone cream or lotion, which can be purchased over the counter in a half-strength percentage, may also provide some relief. Body lotion can be applied to prevent drying if the skin is not broken. Aspirin or acetaminophen or Tylenol can be used to relieve pain. More important than relieving sunburn, however, is preventing it. One could, of course, stay indoors all day, but that would be somewhat excessive. A better alternative is to use a combination of physical and chemical barriers. Hats, long-sleeve shirts, umbrellas, and simply staying in the shade are all very effective ways of reducing sun exposures. When this is not possible, a variety of chemical sunscreens and barriers are available. The most common and effective ingredient in the sunscreens is para-amino-benzoic acid, or PABA. Depending on the concentration of PABA in a product, it can give anywhere from mild protection to complete sunblock. Sunscreen preparations are labeled with SPF or sun protection factor numbers, which indicate the level of protection, with lower numbers being less protection and 15 being total sunblock. Most dermatologists will recommend using SPF 15. Zinc oxide is the most commonly used barrier method and basically reflects all of the sunlight which hits it. It is somewhat greasy and unsightly, however. How much preventing sunburn can actually reduce the incidence of skin cancer, or whether the total cumulative dose of ultraviolet radiation is more important, is still being studied. But avoiding overexposure to the sun will certainly make your summer more comfortable, and in the long run will probably decrease your risk of skin cancer. I'm Dr. Cynthia Bowers, and this has been Health Facts.
Hello, and welcome to Consumer Aware. I'm Adrienne Eisner, Director of the East Brunswick Consumer Affairs Office. Today we're going to be talking about car rental agencies. If you need to rent a car, here is some important information to keep in mind when dealing with the rental agency. When you arrive at the rental counter, you are usually asked whether you want the optional collision damage waiver, also known as CDW, for $6 to $8 a day additional. It is explained that the waiver acts like insurance, so that you will not be held responsible for damages in case of an accident. Before you sign, did you consider that you might be purchasing coverage you already have and calculate that your low weekly rate could more than double with this additional payment? Before you rent, here is some advice to follow. Check your personal auto insurance policy. It may include a provision for rental cars. If you are not sure about this, call your insurance agent. If you are renting for business travel, ask what your employer's policy is toward the purchase of CDW. Many employers will tell their employees not to buy CDW and will absorb the cost of any damage as the result of an accident. When comparing rent-a-car rates, consider the optional daily CDW rate as well as the daily or weekly basic car rental rate. Should you refuse the waiver, ask the rental agent what the deductible is on the car in case of an accident. Some rental companies hold you responsible for the entire value of the car, while others may hold you responsible for the first $3,000 in damage. This deductible may be covered by your own auto insurance policy. So the important thing is that you should check out all the pertinent information. In that way, you can be sure that you are being appropriately covered in case of an accident with the rental car without making unnecessary payments. If you have any further questions, please call us at the East Brunswick Consumer Affairs Office. The telephone number is 390-6954. We're in the office in the Municipal Building Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. Thank you for joining me on Consumer Aware. See you again next week.
During the discussion portion of Monday night's council meeting, representatives of Irate, Independent Residents Against Toxic Environments, Stan Fisher and Audrey Mantell urged the council to monitor the Edgeboro landfill with aerial photography. They also alerted the council to the impact of the proposed trash transfer station in Piscataway and asked the council to oppose all out-of-county garbage. Also, Middlesex County Agricultural Agent Peggy Ballister Howells shed light on aspects of the state's farmland preservation program. She explained that it is an 8-year program which involves compensating farmers for maintaining their farmland by paying them the difference between the agricultural value of their land and the developed value. 50% of this compensation would be funded by the state. The remaining 50% may be funded by a combination of resources, including county and township contributions. In order to qualify for the program, a farmer must own at least 10 contiguous acres of farmland. Consultants to the Turnpike Widening Ad Hoc Committee presented their findings in regard to the need for widening the Turnpike and its effect on the area's sound and air quality. Special Counsel Michael Gerard introduced the panel of experts and summarized their findings.
I'm accompanied by Dr. Frederick Kessler, who is our noise expert, Jeffrey Green, who is our traffic expert, and Daniel Gutman, who's our air quality expert. I've been asked to just briefly summarize the results of their studies, and these gentlemen are available to answer your questions. I'd like to talk about three topics very briefly. First, what they concluded concerning the need for an expansion. Secondly, what they have concluded regarding the impacts of an expansion. And finally, where we currently stand in the legal process. In terms of the need for the expansion, our consultants' conclusions are that the Turnpike Authority has greatly overstated the need for an expansion of the Turnpike. When in traffic engineering, one makes projections about future traffic growth based on a straight line projection of what past experience has been, particularly when past experience has been one of high growth, that tends to overestimate the future need for the project. In this case, they have not only taken a straight line, but they have estimated an even higher degree of traffic growth that would be justified by that methodology. A much preferable methodology would be to relate the traffic growth projections to projections as to growth in population and economic activity. The draft environmental impact statement, the DEIS, prepared by the Turnpike Authority, did not do that. And for that reason, among others, we think that they overestimated the future growth in traffic on the Turnpike. Additionally, there is reason to believe that the Turnpike has a greater traffic carrying capacity than most other roadways with a comparable width and size, because the Turnpike is very straight, it has wide lanes, it has very few entrances and exits, and therefore it seems to have a high capacity per lane mile, which means that if there's more traffic that's generated, you don't need to widen it so much in order to handle that traffic. Moreover, the environmental impact statement did not relate the widening projections to any need to widen the access roads or the interchanges, which would serve as a constraint. The bottom line on the need for an expansion is that a case could be made. I'm not going to argue this case, but a case could be made that one could justify an expansion from the current 6 lanes to 8 lanes. One could not very easily justify an expansion beyond 8 lanes to 10 lanes, and certainly not anywhere beyond 10 lanes. Even if one does believe the numbers that are in the environmental impact statement, an expansion from 8A to 9, as is now projected, may not be effective in relieving traffic, because there's no expansion further south between 8 and 8A, which could serve as a bottleneck. And therefore, under either scenario, the projections of the Turnpike Authority for traffic don't work. In terms of the effects of the highway, that breaks down into, in our study, air quality and noise. On air quality, we found major problems with the carbon monoxide impact analysis. The most important, perhaps, is that the vehicle speeds, which were assumed by the Turnpike Authority, assumed a minimum speed of 30 miles per hour. However, if you were to believe the Turnpike Authority's traffic projections, the speeds might go down to 15 or 20 miles per hour at certain times, which would mean much more air pollution, because the slower the speeds, the higher the emissions. Secondly, the Turnpike Authority assumed much more dispersion in the atmosphere, that the air pollution would disperse to a greater extent than it probably will, which means that they have underestimated the accumulation of that air pollution in the atmosphere immediately around it. They have underestimated the background levels of carbon monoxide, because they have ignored the effect of surrounding traffic growth on the level of carbon monoxide in the area. There are numerous computational difficulties in their analysis, without getting into any of the details, unless you would like me to expand on it. They used the wrong algorithm in their computer model with respect to speeds. They used the wrong factors in converting from 1 hour impacts to 8 hour impacts, and there are a number of other errors in their analysis. The total effect of all of this is that they have considerably underestimated the impact of the highway on air pollution levels. Finally, on the subject of noise, the Turnpike Authority relies heavily on noise barriers as a method of mitigating the impacts of noise on the surrounding areas. Noise barriers can be somewhat effective on houses that are right on the other side of the barrier, but their effectiveness rapidly diminishes as you go beyond that first row of houses. And it's not easy to really project that that the barriers will have a major impact on abating noise beyond that first row of houses. Calculating the effect of the barriers on even the first row and certainly beyond is very difficult for a number of reasons. For us, it's particularly difficult because the Turnpike Authority has failed to provide us with the backup information, their calculations, the models they've used, the inputs to the models that they've used that are necessary in order to double check on their computations. Some of the double checking that we have been able to perform makes us very dubious about the results for a number of reasons. One is that they seemed to make their observations of noise levels at odd hours and then use a number of mathematical manipulations to convert that into the peak traffic hours or the peak noise hours, which introduces a great element of uncertainty and approximation. They underestimated the height of some of the sources of noise, particularly the heights of the trucks, which is an important input into the model. The height of the exhaust from the trucks tends to be a lot higher than what they calculated in the model, and therefore the barriers will be that much less effective because the heights of the exhausts may go above the barriers. There was no real impact study done at all of the construction noise. This is a major construction project which could extend over a period of years. There was no analysis in the EIS as to just how much noise that will create over what period of time.
Gerard recommended that the township continue to oppose the authority's action to remove the turnpike section between exits 8A and 9 from federal jurisdiction. Later in the evening, the council authorized updates of the traffic and water master plans. That's all for this week. See you at the fair next week.